Alright everyone, hello and welcome back to another video here with Holio Awakening and Thunder Dragon Neigong. Today we're going to read through another article from the website, and we're going to be talking about a very important topic for cultivation in general. For practices such as Qigong, Taijiquan, any of the internal martial arts, and yoga, which we're going to be using as the primary example, simply because it is the most well-known of the internal cultivation arts. Now, there are definitely some distinct differences between Tai Chi practice, Qigong practice, and yoga practice, but there are also areas where they overlap, some similarities, some similar foundational principles. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, laying out how some of those principles that they share are often misunderstood, neglected, or misused in modern practice. But before we get started, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, whatever's appropriate wherever you're watching this, to be notified of further videos and educational trainings. And be sure to check out all the social links and the website where we have our classes, courses, and other educational material. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. This video is Beyond Movement and Breath, Reconnecting the Deeper Roots of Internal Cultivation. In recent years, Qigong and Taijiquan have steadily grown in popularity, finding their way into community centers, rehabilitation programs, and wellness spaces across the world. Yet among the internal cultivation arts, yoga remains the most widely recognized and practiced in the West. While these systems arise from different cultures, they share a common alchemical perspective. Each seeks to refine the human being from the outside inward, harmonizing body, breath, mind, and spirit into a unified process of transformation. Because yoga is so familiar to so many students, it offers a useful lens through which we can illuminate principles that apply equally to Qigong and Tai Chi. By examining yoga's structure, we can better understand both the strengths and the limitations of modern practice, and more importantly, how to restore wholeness to our own training, regardless of the style or lineage. Asana and Pranayama, necessary but not complete. So when most people think of yoga, they imagine a room full of practitioners moving through various postures, perhaps accompanied by deliberate breathing. This is the main thing we think of when we think yoga. That's typically the only thing that comes to mind. If someone says, well, I'm practicing yoga, what immediately do you think of? The postures and the breathing. In classical yogic terminology, these are known as asana, which is the posture, and pranayama, which is the breath regulation. Together, they form the foundation of what is commonly taught today. The vast majority of all the yoga that's practiced, all the classes that are taught, are these movements and breath sequences. From the perspective of Qigong and Taijiquan, these correspond closely to our standing practices, moving forms, stretching sequences, and breathing exercises. Tai Chi and Qigong have these similar aspects to them. We have the various standing postures, the isometric trainings that we do. We have the moving, dynamic postures and trainings that we do. And we have, of course, the stretching sequences and breath exercises similar to yoga. These strengthen the body, improve flexibility, regulate the nervous system, and support circulation of energy. For health and basic vitality, these methods are undeniably powerful. However, both yoga and the Chinese internal arts make a crucial point that is often overlooked, especially in our modern practice. And that is that movement and breath are not the practice in its entirety. They are preparatory. So here's the issue. When people think of yoga, they think of doing stretches, doing postures, and breathing. When people think of Tai Chi or Qigong, they think of breathing and flowing. These nice, soft, flowing movements. Relaxing is the main thing they think of. But these things that are done, these practices, are not the entirety of the practice. They are the preparatory phase to get the body ready to do the deeper practice. They are gateways. To mistake them for the whole path is to remain perpetually at the threshold. It's to stay at the beginner's level, in the doorway for your entire practice, never progressing in to the actual system. The 8 limbs, a map of progressive cultivation. Classical yoga is organized around what Patanjali described as the Ashtanga, or the 8 limbs. These 8 aspects form a complete system of internal cultivation, each one leading naturally into the next. Asana and Pranayama, the postures and the breath work, occupy only the 3rd and 4th positions in this 8-limbed sequence. This alone should give us pause. This is something that we immediately should take notice of. If posture and breath are limbs 3 and 4, then what comes before and what follows must be equally essential. The 8 limbs are traditionally listed as Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So you see the issue here. If we begin with and only continue with limbs 3 and 4, it's like we're trying to construct a building with no foundation. And without continuing past 3 and 4, we're putting up the braces, but we're not fleshing out the structure. We're not finishing the project. So we're taking the beams and we're setting them on the ground with no foundation to hold them up, and we're not coming in to finish the enclosure. This is what we're doing when all we ever do is practice just the breathing and the movement and the stretching and the relaxation, but we don't incorporate these other principles into the practice. So rather than separate techniques, these limbs represent a continuous process of refinement, moving from outer conduct to inner realization. So let's take a few minutes to look briefly at some of these, and we'll continue in greater detail on each one in later videos. First off, Yama and Niyama, the first and second limbs. The first 2 limbs, Yama and Niyama, deal with ethics, character, and self-regulation. Things that I think, if we're honest, we understand are sorely lacking in our modern culture across the board. They address how we relate to others and how we relate to ourselves. Concepts such as honesty, restraint, humility, discipline, and contentment belong here in this category. These are rarely emphasized in modern yoga classes, yet traditionally they form the bedrock of the entire system. And it's the same thing reflected in Qigong and Tai Chi. Why is this? Why are these so important? Because without upright character and self-regulation, the rest of the practice lacks stability. How often do we see the very people who speak of love and light and peace and harmony, and they never miss a group yoga class, they go to all these events, but they exhibit zero control over their emotions, they're emotional wrecks. They have no control over their appetites, they're gluttonous, lustful, you name it. and they're constantly spending their time reacting to everything around them. Their lives are chaos. Why is this? They go to the practices, they do the techniques, they do the postures, they do the breath work. They're constantly talking about how they're working on themselves, and yet they are chaos incarnate. This is because they have not taken the first step to develop character, discipline, willpower, honesty, integrity within. They're emotionally distracted, carried away by every whim, carried away by every external stimuli that comes toward them. They have no bedrock foundation upon which to begin to develop and pursue the alchemical work. In Taijiquan and Qigong, this same principle appears through ideas such as virtue, sincerity, patience, and moderation. Internal cultivation is not merely mechanical. There's a mechanical quality to it. Again, the asana and the pranayama are vital. The physical movements are vital, but by themselves, they are empty. The quality of one's mind and intentions, the E, directly shapes the quality of one's energy. Two people can be doing the same practice, but the one with proper intent will get far greater results. Without modesty, without self-control, without integrity, progress becomes distorted, shallow, or unsustainable. In simple terms, if the roots are weak, the tree cannot grow tall. This is why we have to develop these virtues of character. When we're talking about cultivating qi, cultivating the internal power, it has to be able to settle in order to be worked with and cultivated. If we live lifestyles of dishonesty and deceit, or of jealousy and envy, constant drama and chaos all around us, if we are overly lustful, overly sexually stimulated, if we are, gluttonous and can't restrain our appetites and moderate our lifestyles in these ways, the chi cannot settle. It will become dark and turbid and not be able to be worked with. So when we get to these practices where we're working to cultivate and purify ourselves, we're not going to be able to achieve any real results if we don't correct our lifestyles, correct our intentions, correct our way of being before we get started. Physical skill without moral grounding may look impressive, but it lacks depth. True internal development depends on this invisible foundation. So then, beyond the first two, Yama and Niyama, if once we've established those, we can go on to preparing the vessel. Why asana and pranayama exist? What are the physical movements and the breath patterns doing? Only after establishing ethical and personal discipline do we arrive at asana and pranayama. Seen in their proper context, these practices are not ends in themselves. Their purpose is to condition the body, to open the joints and connective tissues, to balance the nervous system, to regulate the breathing, to prepare the internal pathways. We're working to reshape, restructure the fascia, the connective tissues of the body, the nervous system, the circulation. We're working to restructure our vessel into a vessel that is capable of performing the deeper work. True yoga, to keep on the yoga example, true yoga is actually what they call samadhi, the deep meditation state where the sense of self dissolves and we become one with the universe, one with the Tao. This is yoga, the term, which means to be yoked together, to be in union. That's what it actually means. But we can't get there. We can't get to that point unless we have a body that's capable of sitting in these meditative postures without disturbing us. And that's really what the asana and the pranayama is for, is to prepare the body so that it can be able to sit for these long periods of time without being distracted and disturbed by the aches and the pains and the tingling and your leg falling asleep and all these little things that will bring you back out of your deep state of samadhi. That's what it is for. Just like in Qigong and Tai Chi, we do precisely the same thing through standing meditation, through silk reeling, training the fascia, through our forms, through coordinated breath. What we're working on is opening and stretching and refining our body, our vessel, so that we can enter into these deeper states of practice. These methods gradually transform the body into a suitable vessel for deeper work. Without this preparation, extended meditation becomes very difficult, unstable, or even harmful. There's all kinds of actual problems that can arise if you try to go into these deeper states of meditation without first preparing the vessel. Just like if we were to try to cultivate the qi and the dantian, if we have not built the dantian properly, our qi cultivation is going to be sloppy, ineffective, and there are deviations that can occur that will actually create significant health problems. So this is the importance of doing these things, doing these practices in these sequential steps like this, because what we're doing is we are following a system that will allow us to get from point A to point B and beyond in a safe and effective way. Without this preparation, extended meditation becomes difficult or even harmful. The body must be capable of stillness. The breath must become smooth and refined. The tissues must soften and open. And the environment must be established in which cultivation can take place. Only then can the practitioner proceed inward. Turning within, the beginning of true internal practice. So, the first four limbs are about preparing us, preparing the mind and the body, the character, to be able to do the real practice to come. Beginning at the fifth limb, we start to really begin our work on this, toward this true practice. The fifth limb, pratyahara, makes a decisive shift. It refers to the withdrawal of the senses from the external distraction, the first genuine step into meditation. Here, attention begins to turn inward. In Chinese terms, this is where listening energy, ting, develops. The ability to be aware within the body, within the self. And also, in our martial applications, the ability to project this awareness into another person's body, to be able to seek out their structural defects, misalignments, and areas that we can take advantage of in combat. Sensory noise quiets. The practitioner begins to perceive subtler internal processes. From this point forward, the practice becomes progressively more internal. Dharana cultivates a focused concentration. Jhana refines this into continuous meditation. And then finally, Samadhi, where we reach true meditation, represents a complete absorption, where even the sense of separate self dissolves. This is not possible, again, unless we have conditioned our body to be able to sit still without discomfort and distraction. And we have conditioned our mind to be able to be free of these emotional distractions that come up within it, which is why we have to refine our character. This mirrors the advanced stages of Qigong and Taijiquan, where practice moves beyond form into stillness, beyond technique into direct experience. Here, transformation no longer relies on external movement. The work is performed through awareness itself. One alchemical process, many expressions. What yoga calls Samadhi, Taoist traditions might describe as merging with the Tao. What yogis frame as meditative absorption, Tai Chi practitioners experience as emptiness, presence, and unified whole body awareness. The language differs, but the destination does not. Across traditions, the same truth emerges. Movement prepares stillness. Breath refines awareness. Ethics stabilizes the mind, and meditation completes the process. When we isolate only posture and breathing, we gain health benefits, absolutely, and that's wonderful. There's no reason not to use those practices for the health benefits. But we miss the deeper alchemy. When we harmonize all aspects of cultivation, character, body, breath, attention, and consciousness, the practice becomes transformative in ways that cannot be conveyed through technique alone. So if we want to really experience the true depths of the benefits of these practices, we can't just do the surface level physical techniques. We begin preparing the body, building the body to be able to function well, to be healthy, to be strong, to be free of aches and pains and distractions. But we have to continue deeper from there if we want to reach the true root of practice. So, looking ahead, this first article lays the groundwork. Internal arts are complete systems, not collections of exercises we can choose from. Whether we practice yoga, Qigong, or Taijiquan, or any of the internal practices, the principles remain the same. Surface level training brings wellness. Integrated cultivation opens the door for profound change. In the next article, we will explore how these steps correspond more directly to traditional Qigong and Taijiquan training models, and how students can begin consciously aligning their own practice with this deeper progression. True cultivation is not about doing movements. It is about becoming whole. Everything is a component of the larger practice. So with that said, again, I'm not trying to downplay the benefits of just doing the stretching, doing the postures, doing the breath work. These have profound benefits to offer for just everyday functionality, health, vitality. But for those who are interested in the true alchemical work, we have to go deeper. You can't just leave it at that level, because the benefits that you'll gain from doing the hard work, from putting in the cultivation, are far beyond anything you could imagine, even what you feel and experience from just these surface level benefits. So with that said, we will call it quits there and see you next time with another video going over these topics. Again, we're going to go through and really drill into each one of these principles and show how they correspond to the internal practices, Qigong, Taijiquan, and yoga, and why they're important to incorporate into our practice. Again, be sure to check out the links below, check out the website for classes, courses, articles, and all that good stuff. And we'll see you again next time. Take care.